a single invisible mark, a fragment of a life left behind on a cold metal surface. Most of the time it means nothing, but sometimes in the hands of the right people, at the right time, that single, insignificant mark can reach across years of silence. It can connect two tragedies that no one knew were related. It can unmask a monster hiding behind the most ordinary of faces. This is the story of two murdered women, a decade-long mystery, and how the ghost of one crime scene came back to solve another. It's a chilling reminder that for justice there is no statute of limitations, and for a killer there is nowhere to hide. Our story begins in 1991. Nancy Ludwig, 42 years old, was a woman who had built a life she'd always dreamed of. As a flight attendant for Northwest Airlines, she traveled the world, a vibrant and adventurous soul, full of life and laughter. She had a loving husband, Art, and a promising career. She was, by all accounts, a person who radiated warmth. On one of her routine layovers, she checked into a hotel near the Detroit Metropolitan Airport. It was a place she'd stayed many times before, a place of safety and routine. But on this night, that routine would be shattered forever. When Nancy failed to report for her next flight, a concerned colleague called her husband. A terrible feeling began to creep in. A hotel employee would be the one to open the door to her room and step into a scene of unimaginable horror. Nancy Ludwig was dead. She had been brutally stabbed. The scene revealed a violent struggle. Nancy had fought valiantly for her life. The initial investigation was swift and intense. Detectives scoured the room for clues. They found that the killer had bound her with a peculiar type of rope and esparto grass cord, often used in gardening and landscaping. But beyond that, the killer was like a ghost. He had been meticulous. He had showered in the hotel bathroom, washing away any potential evidence. He had taken all of Nancy's personal belongings, her luggage, her jewelry, even the trash from the wastebasket. It was as if he was trying to erase her very existence. The only solid lead was a witness who saw a man putting airline-style luggage into what looked like a Monte Carlo in the parking lot that same night. But with thousands of Monte Carlos registered in the area, it was a needle in a haystack. The case grew cold, the leads dried up, and for years, the brutal murder of Nancy Ludwig remained an unsolved, heartbreaking file in a drawer. But what no one knew was that 5 years earlier, in 1986, in the quiet town of Flint, Michigan, over 100 kilometers away, the same ghost had struck before. Margaret Eby was a 55-year-old music teacher, a beloved figure in her community. She lived alone in her house, a place that should have been her sanctuary. But one day she was found in her own bedroom, dead. She too had been brutally stabbed. She too had been sexually assaulted. And there, in her bathroom, on the handle of her faucet, was a partial fingerprint. A small, bloody mark left by the killer. Investigators worked the case tirelessly. They lifted the print and ran it through Michigan's state fingerprint database at the time, but found no matches. They had a crucial piece of evidence, but no one to connect it to. The murder of Margaret Eby also, tragically, became a cold case. Two women living different lives in different cities were now linked by a shared, brutal fate, and no one had yet drawn the line between them. For years there was only silence. Families were left with questions and detectives with frustration. But time, which buries so many secrets, also brings progress. Technology was evolving. By the late 1990s, a new, powerful tool was changing the face of law enforcement: the Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or AFIC-SASA. This new system allowed police to compare a single fingerprint against a massive national database containing millions of prints from across the country in a matter of minutes. The cold case unit in Flint decided to resubmit the partial fingerprint from Margaret Eby's bathroom faucet. It was a long shot. The print was old, it was partial, but it was all they had. The computer began to search, and then a hit. The print matched the right thumb of a man named Jeffrey Gorton. Gorton had a criminal record in Florida for assaulting women, which is why his prints were in the national system. Suddenly, after a decade of silence, the ghost had a name. The investigators now had their prime suspect, but they needed to be careful. They put Gorton under 24/7 surveillance. They learned he was a married man with children, living a quiet life on the outskirts of Flint. He worked for a landscaping company, a company that used the same specific asparagras rope that was found at the Nancy Ludwig crime scene. The connection was electrifying, but they still needed to link him directly to Nancy's murder. The answer would come not from a high-tech lab, but from a piece of trash. While following Gorton, detectives watched him and his family eat pizza at a local roller skating rink. When they left, an undercover officer moved in and collected the plastic cup from which Gorton had been drinking. It was sent immediately to the forensics lab. The lab extracted epithelial cells Gorton had left on the rim of the cup and generated a DNA profile. They compared it to the DNA profile of the semen found at the Nancy Ludwig crime scene from 1991. It was a perfect match. The two cases were now undeniably linked to one man. When police brought Jeffrey Gorton in for questioning, he denied everything. He claimed he'd never been in Margaret Eby's house. But when confronted with the evidence of his fingerprint on her faucet, he had no explanation. When investigators found his home filled with hundreds of items of women's underwear and a secret videotape of him wearing it, the dark, hidden side of this ordinary family man, Gorton was tried and convicted for the first-degree murders of both Margaret Eby and Nancy Ludwig. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The intuition of Nancy's son, who always believed his mother was the victim of a serial killer, was finally proven right. Two families, separated by time and distance but united in tragedy, finally had justice. The case is a powerful testament to the fact that no matter how much time passes, a single clue, a single fragment of truth, can be all it takes to bring a killer out of the darkness and into the light.